Okay, so what you're watching on screen right now is me playing the demo of a new game that's coming out in a couple days called Metal Eden, which I thought looked really cool. I happened to see a Facebook advertisement of the game and I was like, oh, this looks really fun. And so I decided to download the demo and try. But on that Facebook advertisement, I saw a really interesting comment that just kind of baffled my mind. And I don't know where the hell they got this from. I do have an idea, probably, but let me read this comment out to you. This actually looks sick. Here's hoping they don't undermine their own success with pointless pandering and the perpetuation of long since perverted political points. Now, if you happen to see some of the gameplay footage, you can probably guess why they said that. And I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing these kinds of comments on the internet for every single little thing. Now, are there some games that do some of the things that he claims? Yes, there are. Definitely. I'm not going to dispute that at all. That's definitely a thing that has been happening to some games over the past several years. But it seems like these kinds of comments happen because, let's face it, the character you play as appears to be a female. And I guess that is enough for a game to be woke nowadays. Even though, never mind the fact that back in 1987, a little company called Nintendo released a game called Metroid, which, as we all know, starred Samus Aran. And unless you beat the game at a certain enough speed, you probably would just assume Samus Aran was a dude. But if you beat the game quick enough, you find out that they are in fact not a dude. They are a woman. Samus is widely considered probably the first major female character in a video game in terms of a protagonist action role. And it's actually kind of heralded back to the original Alien movie with Sigourney Weaver playing that role, which, if you look into the history of that movie, that wasn't originally the plan. That was something where they flipped the script and ended up making her into the title, the lead character of that movie. Did they call it woke back in 1979? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think people even used the word woke in 1979, except to maybe say, I just woke up or something of that nature. I find it really interesting reading comments like this. So I, of course, responded to them. What a weird thing to post, because it is absolutely weird just because you happen to see an advertisement of a video game on a Facebook ad, and one of the characters of that video game, presumably the one you play as, appears to be a woman. Which, by the way, let us be clear, based on what I've seen of this game, the character you play as is not even a human. They are like an android, a robot, a cyborg, whatever. At least that's what I assume, because some of the dialogue scenes that I've seen, there's absolutely no lip movement whatsoever. I mean, given the high quality visuals that this game has, I don't think that the problem was that they didn't have budget or time to not do some kind of lip syncing. I think it's an intentional design choice because of the fact that they are a robot. And, other than for human aesthetic purposes, there would be no reason for a robot to talk with moving lips. At least that's what I assume. I don't know. Maybe I am reading too much into this, but it is just insane. And of course, this guy responded, just started gaming, huh? Assuming that I'm completely out of the woodwork, I have no idea what's going on. I've been in this for a long time. I've been around I've been playing video games since I was a little kid. When I brought up the NES, I brought up Metroid. Metroid came out when I was 5 years old, okay? I think I might have been like 6 or 7 possibly when I first played the game. But that's besides the point. I was around for all this other controversy related stuff like Gamergate and all this other crazy stuff, which, shoot, that was like what, 11 years ago, something like that, I want to say. I mean, I guess you could say there has been some very questionable design choices, like, for example, the whole, in Dragon Age the Veilguard, that one character with the horns that is non-binary, which in terms of like a fantasy realm type scenario, makes absolutely no sense in regards to that. And then like that whole argument, it's like a whole meme. You just look it up. Just look up Dragon Age non-binary. You'll probably find the cutscene. It's actually pretty hilarious. There are some extreme examples like that. I'm not going to discount that. I'm sure that was kind of a case of like one of the developers of the game pretty much made that character themselves, and they were speaking through the game in that way. And that's why that scene was the way it was, I would assume. But this does not look like that kind of game at all. This doesn't look like anything other than a generic, albeit very flashy and fun and fast-paced first-person shooter, but it looks generic. It doesn't look like it's trying to really ruffle any feathers on that regard. And really, most video games don't attempt to do that. Most video games usually are pretty generic and sterile in that regard. This appears to probably be the case, but so far we've only got the demo with the 2 levels. There's really not a whole lot of exposition. You can skip a lot of stuff. I just basically played it like a fast-paced boomer shooter style game like Doom or whatever. That's pretty much what this reminds me of. It reminds me of like a super futuristic Doom where you're playing like a cyborg lady looking character. And I had a lot of fun. I mean, this game looks like a blast, and I don't know, maybe let the game speak for themselves. Is it that hard to just, hey, if you want to make these claims after the game came out and we have like all the dialogue and everything like that leaking on the internet, and there happens to be some pretty controversial stuff, and you want to make your outrage clickbait videos or post your comments on social media, harass the developers and all this other good stuff, go for it. Now, on the other hand, there is actually a controversy that I found was actually pretty interesting with this game, and that apparently that this game used some kind of AI, which I couldn't find like really any reliable sources on this. There is a whole thing on Steam where there's people saying that they're going to boycott the game because there was some AI voiceovers that were used apparently. And it's weird because the only article I could even find referencing this at all was on NeoGAF, which actually NeoGAF's not even really an article. It's a forum, I guess, so it's not even a real thing that's been reported on at all. And that's something that does concern me because I'm not a fan of using generative AI for this kind of stuff. But from what I understand, with this controversy, it's literally, at least according to the developers, it's literally used for a total of 10 lines of voice dialogue, which there is a lot more than 10 lines of voice dialogue in the demo, because even though, like I said, it's not really like a exposition heavy game, there is a lot of talking going on as you're playing the game. Just, kind of like the real-time cinematics, I guess you could say, with some of the banter between a couple of characters. I really didn't pay attention, to be honest. I was there solely for the gameplay. The gameplay slapped. I'm very much interested in seeing what the final product looks like. Unfortunately, it's not even available for pre-order. It doesn't even have a price listed. If it was like $40 or so, I might pick it up day one. Who knows? Watch them price it for like $70 as a full retail release game, which would probably kill it. But for $40, I mean, this looks pretty dang sweet. But like, if you're going to be outraged about something, be outraged about the AI thing. I think in this particular case, probably not a big deal. But I do get on the other side of the argument. I'm kind of on that side sometimes where you give an inch, they take a mile. Like, who knows? Maybe the next game, they'll just do all of the voiceovers in AI. Maybe they'll start doing textures like that, which they did like with Grand Theft Auto Enhanced Edition or whatever the hell it's called, that Rockstar put out, that they had to spend years and years to patch it because they hired a incompetent development team that somehow released a worse version of the mobile versions of the games for this enhanced edition of the Grand Theft Auto trilogy. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this little banter in this little gameplay session. That's going to be the last line.
This is Mission Control. Entering Vulcan airspace. Right on target. Drop zone clear.